So these are the steps to making an armature, which is the first step of making a clay figure that's in a dynamic pose. So you'll need some sort of armature wire, which can just be a 18 or 20 gauge aluminum wire is fine. Softer the better, because then you can twist it with your hands. So you'll cut a piece of aluminum wire to size, and you might end up with more. If you end up with too less, you can always add some more on. But the first step is to fold the wire in half. So you'll have an end with the two ends, and then the other end will have the folded part. And you're going to start at the end with the folded part, and that's going to be the head. And to keep the wires together, you're just going to start twisting. And keep twisting until it's about the right length for the head and the neck. And then when you've got that to the point where the shoulders are going to start, then you're going to split the wire into two, or into its two components, two single wires. And measure about how long you want the arm to be. So we're working from the head down, so the next part we're going to twist is Zoroark's left arm, and then line up the right side wire. So you want to make sure the arms are the same length, and twist it up so it won't come unraveled. And then you have to get the two wires back together. I give them a little bit of a twist just so they'll stay put. And then you'll continue to twist to make the trunk of the body. So you're going to go to about where the legs or the hips will start. And then measure out the legs. And it's your choice whether to include the feet or not. In this case, I'm not including the feet because I'm going to build the feet up around the bottom part of the leg. Twist it up so it stays in place, same way you did the arms. And make sure the legs are both the same length. The nice thing is you can fudge things a little bit. You can add some aluminum foil or clay if one arm is shorter than the other. And then finally I just wrap up those loose ends. Usually just wrap them into the core somewhere where they won't come undone. And then we got a little wire person. Okay, so now we have the little wire skeleton of our figure. So before the next step, I like to just go ahead and put it in pose. Make sure that all the limbs are bent in the right direction. Zoroark has legs that are bent like a dog's legs, bent backwards. So getting that set up. Bent the neck forward to kind of define where the head's going to be. There, so he kind of is in the pose that I'm going to want him to be in. Next up, we're gonna bulk up the figure. So we have a skeleton. Now we got to make the body, the muscle, everything underneath the skin, and you can do that with solid clay by just using clay, but that's going to be more expensive, and your figure is going to be heavier. So I like to use aluminum foil. Doesn't matter which brand. I usually go with whatever's cheaper. I tend to like the heavy-duty version, so then I don't have to put on so many layers. But I'm just gonna start wrapping aluminum foil, kind of cocoon the various parts of the body in in aluminum foil. And notice that even though I posed the figure, I'm stretching out the limbs to get everything wrapped up. And don't worry too much about how it looks in this stage. Now's not the time to be super nitpicky or a perfectionist. We just need to get some meat on the bones for this stage. And then areas that I want to be a little bit bulkier, I'll just add more aluminum foil. What I'm going to do now is cut some about 3-inch pieces of brass tubing. The brass tubing that I use is 3/32 thick, and the reason that I'm going to be using this will be a lot more clear once you see my baking board. But I'm basically going to make stilts, what's going to look like stilts for the character, because when I bake the character, I want him to be able to stand in the pose that I want him to be in. So I have this board with all these holes that I drilled in it, and these rods that I'm working with are going to allow him to, they'll go in the holes and allow the figure to stand while it's being baked. You don't have to do this. When you bake the polymer clay figure, you can also lay it in a dish on top of polyester batting or fluff, and that works fine. One of the downsides to that I have encountered is sometimes the pose of the character can deform just a little bit as parts of the body lay on top of other parts if you lay it on polyester batting. So I prefer to bake my characters standing up, as the pose won't change too much in the baking process. So I am taping on these brass rods, and I want the brass rod to extend a few inches beyond the end of his leg, which will be the end of the wire. So once I'm done, it's going to look like he's got little stilts on his legs. Okay. And now we'll just continue wrapping aluminum foil as usual. Just want to make sure that the aluminum foil ends where the wire ends. And I want that brass rod to be sticking outside of the character's foot. Like I said, in the next video, when you get to see the clay process start, and I use my baking board, it'll make a little bit more sense how the rods exactly work. I'll just get that all pinched on. I like to fold the foil over and then just kind of spiral it around the wire, pinch it into place. And now I'll get my character back into the pose I want, and looks like I missed a part of wire there, so get that covered up. But yeah, that's basically the process, the first step of creating your figure, and that you have successfully created an armature. So a wire skeleton wrapped in an aluminum foil body. Alright, on to the next step. Do, 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 do.